a little note on the Type X. So the guy picked up his last Type X. He likes it. This is the newer version, which is the black version. It uses a larger gap. I think they were having some problems and issues with it. In this one, I actually am going to use, oh shit, I forgot it. Nope, I didn't. There it is. So this is the, let me show you. This is the original coil from the gray version. So I don't know if you can see in there, but there's a huge gap in between there and the outer diameter. Okay, it's not the best thing in the world, because especially because you want the edge to be closer to that. See, like that. See? Because that's where this is where the heat sink starts. This is all heat sink, right? And it gets rid of that heat. That's also what this is. That's what they use this for. This is also a heat sink. So, but you want that. It's not that you want to fill the gap, because the number of windings don't change, which is typically about 100. But what you want is, if you can, you want to get more windings in there. Typically, I'm going to try to fit 200. And the way that I'm going to do this is the RE Phi. I had these made for, I was doing a lot of Phi recones and a lot of RE recones. This one is dual 0.5. So, but it's by Filier. So technically it's a quad coil. Okay. The other downside is that you need a little bit of an extended former to reach where the cone reaches. So, and because mine's super long, I can do it with this one. So this is the one that's going to have. The OD looks really nice on it, which is good for, again, it's not necessarily that you want to fill the gap because of more windings. It helps, yes, but most people wire in parallel, so you know, again, you stay at 100 windings. But in this case, we like it because we're going to heat sink. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually figure out which one of these is a coil. So you take the positive and the negative, and you figure out which one's a coil, and then I'm going to cut the remainder off. Just going to cut it right there at the base. So that gives me one coil. That's going to be 1 ohm. Then I do the same thing for the other side. So then it'll be dual 1 ohm. I'm going to wire it in series to get a final 2 ohm load. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the spider, where I'm going to double up the leads per side. So, because the other one had a slimmer joint, and I ended up using the Slim Jim coil. So, but on this one, I'm going to use this one. So this one will actually perform better, because it'll have the number of windings in the gap will be greater. So it'll have a little bit more BL. Probably right around 25 to 30%. And I told them already, I was like, I go, this one's going to behave differently. I didn't know how it was going to behave, but I knew it was going to behave differently. Typically, if you put a coil back in there that's too thin, what happens is they typically burn up, just because of normal abuse, normal use, and because that exposure is so far away from the outer diameter, it doesn't heat sink the way it's supposed to. So that'll fix that, and then I won't have to take any windings off. I just cut them. And then what happens is, per coil is going to have 100 windings, so then if I wire that in series, it's going to give me 200 windings. So that's how you do it. And then power handling doesn't change, because typically these are wired in parallel. So does it handle more current? Yes, but it doesn't change the windings. And a coil behaves differently than just regular wire. Okay, you got to understand that. It's going to have a negative, or not negative, a magnetic gap to it. There's a whole different interplay that goes on than it just being a coil of wire. Like for a while there, I think Power Acoustic was making the mofo with like 18 gauge wire, which is way too big, but you know, whatever. You actually want a thinner wire, because then you get more windings. The problem that you run into is that it can cause a higher inductance, and that's a problem in PA drivers. In car woofers, it's actually not a problem. So the other part about using a really long wire, right, which is your L, your length of wire, is that it gives a higher impedance, which actually performs better. So like a 16 ohm coil will perform better than an 8 ohm coil, because it has a number of windings. But then, you know, you have to look at the inductance on the top end. You know, like the inductance on a 16 ohm will probably, let's say 3, that's high, I'm guessing, 3 millihenry. And then an 8 ohm will be like 1.5, almost half of it or something like that. And so sometimes that can affect the circuit, you know, because it's in series with the circuit. So just so you know. But let's see what else. I think that was it. Yeah, I'll just stop it here. I love you guys.